Alright, so what was that sound? You might have heard like a loud banging, kind of like a gunshot. Well, guess what? Morning came without any warning, which was exactly how I was woken up from my slumber. I glanced up at the bullet hole in the wall high above my head, and then to my dad. What kind of twisted father wakes up his son by shooting a bullet into the wall over his head? Yeah, that just happened. His dad woke him up by shooting a gun at the wall over his head. When does that ever happen? Try never. I get the impression that maybe it's supposed to be kind of like a unrealistic kind of thing, almost like you'd see in an anime where it's over-exaggerated, but it just doesn't kind of play off the same in a visual novel, since, you know, it doesn't have some crazy animation where like, oh, the father shoots the gun over the bed and then you see the bullet hole and then the kid jumps out of bed in like some frantic thing. But, it just doesn't work in a VN, I think. What kind of twisted father wakes up his own son by shooting a bullet in the wall over his head? In my rage, I threw my pillow at my dad. He was not amused. Would you rather the bullet in your head then? I glanced at the clock. It's only 7 AM. It's Saturday. Let me sleep. I laid back down with a huff and closed my eyes. I heard the click right next to my ear of the pistol safety coming off. Wait, how did the safety come off if he already shot over the bed? I don't know. My eyes burst open. I'm up! That's what I thought. You have 2 minutes to get your butt over the bastions. I can't even get ready in 2 minutes. I guess you'll have to work in your underwear then. This is unfair. You do the crime, you do the time. Vandalism and stealing. You should be happy your punishment isn't worse. Hard labor and volunteering. You should consider yourself lucky. Yeah, I should be thrilled that I lost my weekends for 3 months. If you finish up early, you can still have some time. Like it matters, I can't see Sasha. Your own fault. You're wasting time. You have 1 minute left to get dressed. Well, get out then so I can. I'm not falling for that, Evan. I know you too well. You'll just go back to sleep if I leave, and probably lock the door this time. I tried to make up some kind of excuse. Well, I can't get dressed with you in the room. Dad folded his arms and gave me a hard stare. He wasn't buying it. I changed your diapers as a kid. I helped teach you how to shower. Really? Help teach him how to shower? Well, I guess someone needs to teach her how to shower. It's just kind of funny. And we go to the gym together regularly. Are you gonna seriously try that excuse? Well, in my sleepy state, I had hoped that it would work. I will drag you and force you to wear clothed or not. So I assume you get your butt out of that bed and start getting dressed. Yeah, he seems like a real stable dad, doesn't he? Knowing my dad, I flew out of bed and got dressed faster than I thought was humanly possible, and then headed over to our neighbors. They lived very secluded lives. A large iron fence covered with various climbing plants prevented anyone from seeing inside. A gate prevented anyone from entering, as if there was some reason to want to keep everyone out. I just thought it was kind of funny also how they had how their neighbor had such a huge estate, but it doesn't seem like they're particularly rich. He's here. Dad pressed a button on the intercom, and after he spoke, the gate began to open. He turned around and handed me a piece of paper. Here's a list of things you need to do for them. If you leave before all of them are done, well, you know. I nodded and walked into the secluded garden. It really felt like I entered a rich person's grounds. Well, it looks like it is. Or some kind of garden in a fairy tale. I frowned as I looked at all the extravagance. Rose bushes of rainbows of colors were everywhere. Snapdragons, hydrogenas, bleeding hearts, and tons of other kinds of flowers. I had no clue what they were. They all blended together in perfect balance like a painting crafted by a master. I glanced at the list in my hands. It was a very, very long list. It's gonna take forever. I wonder if I could just slip out the front gate and skip this. Really? Why would you even consider that? You know it's not gonna work. And Dad's probably expecting that. What people said about me getting leniency was completely true. They had a right to be a little upset at the favoritism I received. My dad wanted to keep me out of the system, so if I screwed up, he'd try to make a backdoor deal to keep my involvement off the record. However, due to that, my punishments were always some form of manual labor, or something for the person I'd wronged. Yeah, I told you guys that this guy's a little bit of like a delinquent, and I really don't know exactly what he did that caused him to get into this much trouble. But yeah, rather interesting. I kept walking through the wonderland of flowers. I came upon a pond with a stone bridge leading to an island in the middle. Various lilies, orchids, and water lilies coated the inside and around the pond. A fancy pergola led into a gazebo that looked like it would fit more in a royal garden than one in a small town like this. The pillars holding the spiderweb designed metal roof up were made of marble, as were most of the supports of the pergola. A small black metal table in the shape of a leaf sat in the center of the gazebo, with 2 metal chairs that had flower designs in between the railings, while the black railings themselves formed vines and leaves. Sitting in one of the chairs, holding a fine china teacup, sat a girl who didn't belong. She fit perfectly with the image the garden projected, but in this time period, she didn't. It was almost like she was living proof of time travel, or that I'd truly stepped into a storybook garden, and in front of me was the princess herself. She sat there so silently without moving an inch. Her skin was so pale and her body seemed so fragile. It made me question if she was really alive. She looked more like a life-size doll than a person. I cautiously stepped towards her. I didn't want to startle her. I should have been paying more attention to where I was walking though. I would have noticed the dog tail in my path. Whoa, nice doggy. The dog was not happy. It bared its teeth at me as it slowly backed me up against the edge. Nice doggy. Yeah, I think you annoyed the dog. Just saying. Like they were her bodyguards, a whole horde of black shadows rose from behind her and came out to where the one dog had me trapped. It was a whole army of different breeds of dogs. Nice doggies. I threw up my hands in defense, trying to tell them that I was innocent. I glanced towards the girl. She was watching me with an emotionless gaze. Was she really gonna let them maul me? They were inching closer and closer, and I had nowhere left to go. A little help? Please? She said nothing, only watching with that almost dead gaze, like she was watching a boring movie. Cool off your mutts! Her eyebrow twitched, and she lifted the teacup to her lips and said in a dull tone, "Sick 'em." On command, all the dogs jumped at me and pushed me into the pond. That's a little bit of an overreaction. I mean, you're gonna sick your dogs on someone, I'm pretty sure that's illegal. Even if the person is working for you as part of some kind of thing for getting off jail as community service or whatever. In a rage, I struck the water's surface. The pond was only 2 feet deep, but my whole body was soaked now. I gazed back at the island and saw her sitting there, still sipping her tea, with her eyes closed like the whole scene in front of her didn't matter. Thankfully, the dogs did not follow me into the pond. They went back over to her and laid down, content that they had caused me discomfort. I suggest you stop slacking off and playing with the dogs and get back to work on the gardening. So she knew I was here and still did that. I growled in frustration as I waded out of the pool. I need to get back to my house for a change of clothes. I was told you weren't allowed to leave until all the work is done. So I'm just supposed to work wet like this? Well, it isn't my problem, is it? If you didn't want to be wet, why did you go for a swim? I want to rip that teacup out of her hands and smash it. Now listen here. As soon as I raised my voice and took a step towards the gazebo, a chorus of growls and snarls echoed. I took a deep breath, a step back, and lowered my voice. You know darn well I didn't choose to swim. I think you did. You made a choice to insult these children. Oh, are you one of those, like, extreme animal rights types where you think they're your own children or something like that? It's a bit extreme. She set the teacup down and put her hand on the German Shepherd's head that rested by her foot. These children have feelings just like anything else. I didn't mean to step on its tail. Then you shouldn't be so careless. Or you need to keep your mutts on a leash. See that right there? You're making a conscious choice with your words to insult them. I'll let it slip this once. She turned away from me and looked back at the dogs on the floor of the gazebo. I think you should get to work. She spoke in a frigid tone. It was clear I'd worn out any sort of welcome I had, which was fine with me. I wanted to finish this work and get out of here anyway. Antoinette is a female dog. Yeah, seems that way at first, huh? The work was hard, it was long, and it was crazy boring. The garden was so huge and everything needed some kind of attending. pruning or watering. It was a lot of work, easily enough for 2 or 3 people. I wiped my brow and turned away from the rose bush in front of me. I turned around and there she was, almost made me drop the pruning shears I held. Don't sneak up on people. I'm surprised. I was still a little annoyed. About what? I was still trying to calm myself down from the sudden fright. I would have thought you'd left by now, but here you are still working. I rolled my eyes. Please, like I have a choice. I know my dad. Do you think you can hurry up? I need you to leave. What? You think I'm going slow on purpose? I'm not. I want to leave as soon as possible. Well, hurry up then. I scooped up the clippers, knelt down, and began to trim back the rose bush. The girl kept looking over at the gate. Was something going to come through it? I felt her poking my arm, the arm that held the clippers. Hurry! Stop poking me. Do you want me to clip off my own finger? Will that make you leave faster? No, just to spite you, I'd sit here bleeding all over the garden. Move over. I can do it faster. She didn't give me much choice as she pushed me out of the way. What's your hurry? I want you to leave. You said that already. So why don't you leave? Because I want to keep my body intact? Little by little, her emotionless tone was starting to crack. Her irritation and frustration started to seep out. I just have to keep cracking her little by little to get through that emotionless facade. You really aren't going to leave, are you? I can't. She let out a sigh and dropped the clippers. Apparently, she was not going to help me after all. I guess I have no choice. I was going to ask her what the big deal was, but at that moment, the gate opened and a nurse entered the garden. Antoinette, you know you shouldn't be outside for long and doing manual labor. Your body isn't going to hold up if you continue that. Let the gardener do his own work. That's what he's hired for. I growled at the hussy woman. Gardener? Excuse me, do I look like some lowly gardener? Well, you're not even a gardener at that, you're just doing this for community service because you're a delinquent, so that's even worse. Come now, back to bed. Your parents would fire me if anything happened to you. The nurse came over and started to lead the girl away. And you! How could you let her stay out here? Shame on you. Without any warning, I became the bad guy. It is really okay, I'm fine. My body is feeling good today. Come on, you need rest. No, really, I know what's best. Come on now. You need to lie down before it starts to hurt. But I'll bring you a bowl of soup for you to eat. Hey. They both stopped and the nurse spun around and gave me a hard stare. She said she didn't want to. Are you a nurse? No, you can only cut weeds. Leave the assessment of the patient to someone who is qualified. Taking care of someone isn't just about making sure they're safe. It's also making sure you're looking out for their happiness. I'd never really taken care of someone, but my older sister and my parents had taken care of me all the time. So I knew what it meant. It wasn't just making sure they got better, it was keeping them in a good mood too. And you're qualified to say this based on what? She wants to stay outside, so let her stay outside. Well, I'll never. I'll report you. The nurse got all huffy and stormed out of the garden. I can't believe that actually works. Like she was actually chased out just because the gardener said something. Thank you. That was all I received before she walked away, heading back to the gazebo. I shook it off and continued focusing on the work I had left. I didn't have to wonder for long, as a few minutes later she returned this time with a chair. What is she doing? I watched her straighten her dress before she sat down. She sat there watching me while holding a teacup. Well, do something. Don't just stare at me. Okay. I returned to work. It seemed I had a spectator now. This is boring. Why don't you accidentally clip yourself or cut the wrong branch and freak out? I'm not your entertainment. Boring. Ain't that right, Dust? The dog barks. Among the whole posse of dogs, the German Shepherd named Dust seemed to be the alpha, and the one she happened to be closest to. Boring. Stop acting like a person at the movie theater who's unhappy with the movie, so they throw popcorn at the screen. Whoa, hey, stop it. Dust, I was not insulting your master. Stop. Dust refused to listen, and he clearly saw me as an enemy and went for me with fangs, right to a place that I didn't want him to go for. I grabbed him, trying to hold him back as I cried out for help. Dust, stop. Don't go for that spot. Anywhere but there. Hey, you. Yeah, you, sipping your tea. Stop sitting there and help me. Do you see what's gonna what, he's trying to bite? You think this is funny? Down, Dust, please. I know we got off to a bad start, but biting me down there is just cruel. The dog was determined and freaking strong. Get him off me. Tell him to stop. Stop laughing. It's not funny. Now this is entertainment. Stop snapping. You're doing this on purpose. I know you are. Both of you. Finally, Dust stopped and turned around and went back over to his master, the demon dog and his demon mistress. Thanks for livening things up, Dust. I love you. And I hate you both. Someone's bitter. You'd be too if you were me. He didn't bite you. The act of almost is enough to give me nightmares for a while. He was just playing. Demon dog. I should really learn to keep my mouth shut. 8 dogs rose up from their positions and surrounded me like a swarm of bees. Have mercy, please. Stop. To my relief, all the dogs left me alone and joined Dust by their master's side. You should learn to control your tongue. They don't like it when you insult Dust or me. So I've noticed. I'm Antoinette. Evan. After we finally introduced ourselves, I got back to work. So I was wondering, are we friends now? That's quite the question to ask after the series of events. After nearly sicking your dogs on me several times, you ask if we're friends. I guess she doesn't see people very often. My eyebrow rose at that. No? I see. She's sad about that? She is so weird. After that was a long period of silence as I continued to work. If I'd moved from one spot, she'd follow me with her chair, teacup, and her army of dogs. So I was wondering something. What is a movie theater like? You don't know? I glanced back at her. She was petting Dust. It seemed she did that when she needed comfort or strength. No, I've never been outside this garden or my house. What? Why not? My body is too frail, the doctors say. I don't know why. I try to block it out. I don't want to know. They say my bones are really weak, and my heart is too... and my body can't take too much sunlight. So I guess everything. So you never been outside this place? She shook her head. I now understand why she acted so strange. Why she was watching me all the time. Why she asked if we were friends. Okay, I'll be your friend. What? I'll be your friend. What followed was not what I expected. The questions flew out of Antoinette's mouth at lightning speed, non-stop. She knew hardly anything about the world, and she was curious about everything. Someone in the comments said premature baby's disease. It seems kind of almost like the same thing from Magical Diary, doesn't it? Talking with her really made the hours fly by. I started pruning another bush while Antoinette and her bodyguards watched over me. All of a sudden, I felt someone weigh on my knee. What the? I glanced down. To my surprise, Dust was laying his head on my knee, using it as a pillow. Get off. Shoo, I can't work with you like that. Wow. That's amazing. Dust never gets close to anyone but me. Really? I could understand why, the demon dog that he was. Yeah, he was abused a lot when he was a puppy, before he was left on the side of the road. He was on death row when I saved him. It took a long while before he even trusted me. But I wasn't going to give up. I felt bad for him. He was going to go through life never experiencing anything good. That's sad, to be able to live and never know anything of happiness. I began to scratch his ear. His blue eyes stared up at me, but he didn't do anything else. In fact, he seemed to relax more. I want him to be happy. Everyone deserves to know happiness. In fact, all the dogs, they were all in bad homes or had no homes at all. I didn't think of it all before, but Antoinette really has a big heart. She stood up and walked over to me, sat down and began to pet Dust on the head. He must really trust you. Maybe after all the messing with me he did, he accepted me. He must have some respect for you. Maybe he's a foe. It is almost lunchtime. Can you make something? You can't? She shook her head. Doctor says you're not allowed. She nodded. She was truly a helpless person. How do you survive then? Your parents are always away on business, I heard. Nurses come to check up on me 6 times a day. Wow. Shouldn't they just stay here at that point then if they're checking up that often? I mean, if they're traveling from far, it must take them a while. Maybe they're next to a hospital or something. I'm not really supposed to have any visitors. Doctor says that it can be too much for me. Is that why you want me to leave? She nodded. Your life really sucks. No, it's okay. She smiled, one of the only smiles I'd seen her make. Because I've got my family. But you said your parents are gone. Not them. They're just my parents. They aren't my family. These children are my real family. She gestured down towards the dogs around her. I saved them, all of them. I saw their names in the paper. They're going to be killed by shelters. No one wanted them. But I saved them. They are my family. She leaned down and hugged Dust. They are the most important thing in the world to me. Without them, I'd be all alone. No wonder they stick to you like bodyguards. Evan, when you leave today, promise you'll come back sometime and see me. Even with my family, I get lonely. I want to hear more about the world outside, even if I can never see it. Just hearing about it's enough. I'll do more than that. I'll introduce you to my friend and my girlfriend. I'll show you more people so then you won't feel alone. Thank you. Thank you. But first, how about that lunch? You said you were hungry, right? Yeah. I tried to cause Dust to wake up. I didn't want him to just suddenly get up when he was relaxed using my body as a pillow. His eyes opened and he got up. I was about to do the same when Dust came up to me. He looked at me in the face, wow. Yeah, a sudden change in a reversal of fortune with the dogs. Before they couldn't stand him and now they love him. Just once. Whoa. What? He barely even licks me. I smiled at Dust. We had gotten off to a very rocky start, but we were quickly becoming bros now. I don't know, do you call a dog a bro? Not usually. I guess you can, but whatever. I ruffled his fur and gave him a series of pets and ear scratches. He looked at me again in response. No fair, stop stealing my family. Dust, give me a kiss too. To our surprise, Dust gave me another instead and then just walked away. Wow, you traitor, backstabber, I thought we were family. I just laughed. Antoinette let out a sigh and then turned to me. I'm really glad you came here, Evan. I'm so glad I got to meet you.